So, come on, you must have things in your mind you are dying to ask one or both of these two gentlemen, so let's go for it. Wave at me. We've got somebody, have we? Yes, I think we have got somebody. Can I remind you to say who you are and from whence you come, please?
Hi, I'm Paula Hayes and I'm from Training Plus Merseyside, which is a work-based learning organisation in Liverpool. Not really a question, just a statement really.
I don't think I like statements, but I'll let you off. Go on.
Well, it has compelled me. We have got our contract. We were successful, yes, after a very long and painful process. But I do have to say, we are a small organisation on Merseyside. We're the third biggest childcare provider for work-based learning, so we do really well. I don't have the money in my organisation as a co-owner to employ 3 other people to look at my bid. We were very lucky. We were successful in what we did, and there are providers on our patch that potentially have gone under and couldn't do that. Again, just around costs within organisations, a lot of work-based organisations aren't cash rich. We're one of them, but we're in a very thankful position compared to some of our colleagues on the patch.
Okay, I mean, guys, do you have any thoughts and advice for perhaps the more cash-strapped organisations around, you know, how they do some of this stuff?
Well, I think I'll start. I mean, we're all cash-strapped. Let's be right about it. You know, whether you are growing and feel, actually, you could argue technically you may be over-trading. You know, if you're growing, you have a massive working capital strain. You know, from our business's perspective, the thing that's hit us as a business actually is what we used to call the double bubble on start payments. And the change in for example, in the digital space, where there were the qualifications in the old in the old frameworks, and you delivered part of it in 6 months, and you got 80% of the technical element in 6 months. Whereas now, you lose the double bubble, plus it's all spread over a 12-month period. So in that sense, if you took a level 3 framework IT learner, compared with a level 3 standards learner, at month 6, we would have earned 7, and we're now earning 3.5. And you multiply that by 300 enrolments a month, that's cost us about 4 million quid. So in that sense, I think we're all cash strapped. I think Beej's point, which is it means that you have to focus much more and be brave and say we don't do that anymore, is I think absolutely the critical thing. In terms of the point around 3 consultants looking at our bid, those 3 consultants in total cost 1,500 quid. I see that as great risk management, not profligate spending, to be honest. Even though I had confidence that our bid was get us through, it was so business critical that we had to get through that it was well worth paying Carly Consult, leadership group, and I didn't tell each of them, actually, that I'd employed each of them. I got 3 independent views and took those views because it was so critical to our business getting through. So unfortunately, I actually don't have sympathy for those people who didn't put that amount of effort, and 1,000 quid is not a lot of money.
Yeah, can I just add, I think again, I'm a director of quite a small size learning curve and the governor of a college, quite a small provider in the very narrow area of beauty therapy and the complementary therapies. And we found exactly, if we were just solely relying on apprenticeship and come into the market brand new, I think we'd have been really struggling. What we were able to do is use some of what cross-funding from having a 16 to 19 contract, having a traineeship contract and a substantial AAB contract to actually, first of all, give us the bit of that spare cash, that bit of surplus that we needed to spend on writing the actual tender, but doing all the work behind it, because you're right, Peter, it's not just about sitting down and writing. You've got to make sure that even if you're using an external consultant, they understand your business and they understand the nuances of what you're going to put into that. But I think also there's another factor here, is that our primary market for apprentices is our existing students. So our 16 to 19, we help them to get jobs. And we also, therefore, go to the employer and say, and we'll train them as apprentices. We do the same with our adult education budget. I mean, we're quite a big traineeship provider. Traineeships have been our primary source of apprenticeships because we've already got the employer providing the 6, the 8 or the 10-week work placement. So we've got a very, what I'd call an interim labour market. But we are small, but if we had just simply been solely coming into this market fresh, I can understand it very difficult. So we've been able to use some of the other things to actually cross-subsidise and also to create our market. But I can understand that when you're starting to look at, for example, case loading, if you've got 70 frameworks and 6 standards and you spread that, 3,500 apprentices across it, it's okay. In some areas we've got 800 apprentices, so you can have caseloads that are quite reasonable, and you might have full-time assessors, tutors. But when you've only got 6 people on a very distinct, whether it be trowel trades or arboriculture, we have to have some issues about scale there, because that's a specialist area, and very often there aren't any other providers of it. So I think, as Peter said, one of the things that's certainly driving a lot of our decisions is to narrow the range, first of all, increase the scale, and that also means to move away from being very local. We were originally very much about South Yorkshire, North East Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire, to actually now extending as far as Manchester, Cumbria, the North East, but not Suffolk, because our partners are in the room, and or Norfolk. But obviously we have had to increase that scale and scope as well.
And I think one tip I would say is keep it narrow and deep.
Yeah.
As we grew our business, we actually only delivered 5 frameworks, but we created 38 centres, we delivered it 4,000 times a year, and we got grade 1 Ofsted. And it was only because we focused on a very narrow range of offer. We have more now. That enabled us to control our cost, it enabled us to control our quality, and it enabled us to grow our business at the same time.
Okay, I think it's an interesting point there about procurement and bid writing. Interestingly enough, I'm often asked to write bids for people, and I frankly refuse to do it for 2 reasons. The main reason is what I would have to charge them for my time to go in and understand their business in sufficient depth to be able to write a bid makes it uneconomic. I will happily review a bid that they themselves have written. And I seriously believe that that's the most cost-effective way of doing it.
Correct.
You get an independent pair of eyes looking at something that you yourself have written, and within that bid you can communicate so much more information in a way that you know and you understand. So,
but I can also add to that, and you might actually be able to turn around to the person and say, don't do it.
yeah,
Don't
absolutely.
just say, switch off.
And I'm not saying it from a position of being smart. We put an AEB bid in, and I gave it to somebody in our organisation to put in. We were told by the ESFA we were going to get a big bid. We didn't get anything because we didn't answer the questions properly.
No, there you go. Okay,
It's our fault.
next
Nobody
question,
else.
please. Lady here. Lindsay's running to you.
All right. Hi. I'm Joy Okwadibo. I'm representing Highbury College in Portsmouth, but we do have a centre in Birmingham and in Burton, so we're planning to expand. And we're a large further education institution in the southeast, so quite conversant with Ofsted ranking. How would you advise us in terms of bringing in employers, especially we are quite used to working with employers in the southeast, but coming to the Midlands, and the levy payers, the lower to middle point market, how do we access that? I'm new to apprenticeship scheme myself, so please. So that's a question for Peter.
Yeah, I think we've got your question. Thank you very much.
And then a question for Beej, please think about it. In terms of post-Brexit, I've spent the past 4 years in Africa promoting vocational training as regional director for Africa for Highbury College. And once I mention city and guilds, be it Tanzania, Ethiopia, Kenya, you name it, they understood it. It's the best of British standard. How do we, especially linking with the major levy payers who might have opportunities, under Theresa May's Global Britain,
might have opportunities of trading abroad, because I've been working with British High Commissioners abroad who said that Britain must export, and one of our greatest exports will be education. And whilst Germany is competing with Britain, but these countries I've named in Africa
Okay,
are English.
we've got your questions.
Yeah.
Peter, do you want to go first?
Very, very rapidly, we have a sales team of, nationally, we now have a sales team of about 80 people. The key, in my view, to success of those 80 people being deployed is that they're local. We don't have a call centre, we don't use third-party appointment setters, all of that sort of stuff. Typically in one of our academies, so we have an academy in Birmingham, I know you run New Horizons, we have 4 what we call recruitment executives who are based in the Birmingham Academy. They hunt and farm the local marketplace. And we have that in each of our 38 academies across the country. And that for us has proven very, very successful. Being local to the businesses, local networking, all of those sorts of things. And then for the levy market, we've now created 5 grades of recruitment exec, starting at 23,000 at the bottom plus bonus, all the way up to £150,000 a year for a salesperson. And we've created that because what we've found is that the levy paying at the top end, it's a relationship sell, and you need a different type of individual. We then have middle market, and we have a different type of individual again. But for the people within our organisation who's starting at the bottom, they can see there are 5, 6 grades in our organisation, and we contain them. One of the biggest things very quickly that's happened in this market since the levy, for those of you who are recruiting salespeople, is the average wage of a salesperson in this market has gone through the roof.
Absolutely.
And good salespeople are very rare to find. And if you've got them, keep them.
Yeah.
I would add to what Peter said in terms of the fact also that they are relationship managers as well. So it's building up that relationship, takes you through all the lows and highs of that business is absolutely critical. So it's much more solution focused, and it isn't always apprenticeships that's the solution. Correct. I think in response to the second question, I think that is actually quite an important issue. I don't know if you're all listening in about the sort of perceptions in India of what Britain's famous for, and people in India were asked. They knew quite a lot about the universities, Cambridge, Oxford, place like that. Then they asked them, could you name any British manufacturer? And they went, KFC, Cadbury's. And one of them said, East India Company. So he's obviously been watching some very, very good programmes on TV set in the 18th and 19th century. But I think there is a perception that, what stands out in any country. If you mentioned Germany, you mentioned Switzerland, you mentioned Austria, you mentioned Finland, and you've got very good vocational education systems, because they are vocational education and training systems that have been well established, well resourced, and well understood. Employers know what to expect. We've got that problem. There's a lot of change, and it's difficult for employers. It's difficult, therefore, for employers in Britain to understand it. What about employers elsewhere, or employers that have got worldwide operations? So I think you're right, there's going to be a problem. I mean, I was involved in the 90s in selling NVQs to Poland. It did help being Polish. But it was quite interesting. That was part of the pre-accession plan for Poland, Czech Republic, Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, was to standardise the training. And so we had motor vehicle students who did a Polish 4-year diploma, which included history, Polish literature, civil defence, and rural science, the rounded apprentice. And then they came over here and did their NVQ, usually with BMW or Volkswagen, because Volkswagen were going to set up a major distribution centre in Poland. And what was quite interesting was, they said, who invented NVQ? We had to try and explain it. I suppose it's exactly the same as who invented the new standards. And they went, yeah, so where's the education? And I think that was quite interesting. So there was that perception that by narrowing things, we actually did a disservice to a lot of our apprentices. So I think there's a sense in which, not having a qualification is also going to create that problem. Because as you said, City and Guilds is understood, BTEC's understood, other awarding bodies, ILM, etc. understood. If there isn't something like that in there, will an endpoint assessment organisation ring the same bell? The standard might do, only if that endpoint assessment organisation rings the bell with someone. So I think you're quite right. There are going to be difficulties in exporting some of this.
Okay, great. We need to end it there. Thank you very much, Peter and Beej. Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you.